welcome back to our next episode of Sock Talk. Football is back. Week 1 is in the books. We had some wins and losses.
We also have some really good trades to talk about, so let's get right into that. The first big trade that happened last week actually involved me and Sherry. I received Deebo Samuel and 4 second-round picks between the years 2024 and 2025. And Sherry received Ken Walker, the Seattle running back, and 2 firsts, one in 2025 belonging to me, and the other in 2024, which was his that I gave back to him. Obviously, I have a biased take on this trade, so I'm going to actually ask Adam, what are your thoughts on the trade?
I feel like it's kind of fair. It's basically 3 firsts because Kenneth Walker was just taken 5th and hasn't played yet, so he's basically just a first for Deebo and a bunch of seconds. The seconds are, I don't know, who knows where they're going to end up. They're in the future, so it could probably like mid to late, maybe a few earlies, but who knows what a second will turn out to. Deebo, obviously good. He helps your team immediately, but I don't know if this takes your team over the edge. I think you probably still need another like wide receiver and tight end help. So I don't know if it would have been better for you to just keep the youth and the picks on your side. For Cherry, he's obviously in a rebuild, so I think him getting that 2024 first back for him is huge because that could be a top 3 pick if he continues to blow it up like he has been. And then Kenneth Walker could be some. We haven't seen anything out of him, so we'll see what that RB turns into. I don't think it's a crazy trade either way, but Cherry's definitely stacking those firsts and getting younger here, and you're getting a proven star.
Yeah, funny enough, actually, the 2024 first that I traded back to Cherry is what I received last year when I traded Deebo for Michael Carter and a first. So, as the old saying goes, sell low, buy high.
Yeah, you followed that one to a T.
Yeah.
Next trade we're getting into, Griff received Alvin Kamara. Cherry got Travis Homer, Antonio Gibson, and a 2025 first. Griff obviously needed running back help, went out and got Kamara, who's been a top one for years. He is getting on that older side of the RB age at like 27, I think. He didn't look great in week 1, but he said there was a rib issue or something. I think he turns it around, probably finish around that like top 12 running back, and will do a lot for him. Cherry, on the other hand, gets another 2025 first. He has like 6 in that draft already. Gibson, who kind of would look good in a receiving role, but he's so up and down in that Washington, like how the coaching staff views him. So I don't know. And then Travis Homer's kind of just a throw-in. It will be interesting to see Cherry stacking these 2025 firsts. Is he just going to... Getting all those firsts, obviously, it's a ton of value there, especially when that draft comes around. But is he really just going to sit out the next 3 seasons and just decide to stay towards the bottom? I don't think his team's completely blown up, as he still has some pieces, but not competing for 3 years possibly could take a long time. But he may do like kind of what Zach did, trade some of those first, get like a CMC and Devontae Adams that Zach did to make his team competitive. So it'll be interesting to see what route he chooses to take.
Yeah, I think Cherry's future is definitely up in the air right now. As far as this trade goes, I think it does help both teams. Gibson had a great game against Jacksonville, but as you said, he's up and down. So I think we'll have to see if he can stay consistent with it. But he did get a lot of targets in the passing game. Kamara, again, had a down game, but it's still an upgrade for Griff, who, even after trading for Mitchell and Akers, really needed a running back still.
Yeah.
Akers getting a solid 0 points on 3 carries.
And Mitchell getting hurt. Yeah.
Mitchell getting hurt.
Needed the RB, and he got a stud, so.
The next trade we're going to talk about happened between Evan and Matt. Matt received Josh Palmer, a 2023 first owned by James, and a 2023 third owned by Zach. Evan received a 2024 first owned by Matt, a 2024 second owned by Matt, and another 2025 second also owned by Matt. I think when I first looked at this trade or saw it come up, I was kind of like, whoa. Like, that's a lot to kind of give up for Josh Palmer, but then I looked at it more. It's like, okay, Matt trades up into this year's first round. Evan maybe trades back. I really don't have. I think it's a pretty fair trade. Maybe when we see the picks come out.
Yeah. I think the hard thing is that Matt gave up all of his picks, and Matt's just been bad for so long. He already gave Evan the 2023 first, which will likely be 101. He does have a few firsts this year, so maybe he's not the first pick in 2024, but he's definitely a contender for it, if not a top 3 pick. So just giving Evan another likely top 3, probably 101 pick to get another stud, it's like Matt's not competing. He should be saving those own picks of his likely, but moving up in the draft, if this 2023 James first, if James finishes low out of the playoffs and he gets a stud running back that can get his team a few more wins, the trade could look a lot better for him.
Absolutely.
And then the last trade that happened after week 1, those were all before week 1. Cherry got Calvin Ridley in a third from Steve. He gave to Steve Cordero Patterson and a 2024 second. I think this is a fair trade. This is obviously still with the Cherry rebuilding. Seems like he's trying to get a top pick this year. To who knows what he's targeting. Again, most of those picks are later on, but he does have his own first this year, so probably trying to make his team worse for that. Patterson will probably give Steve huge depth, and then who knows what Ridley's going to be when he comes back. Not playing football for like 2 years basically when he comes back, because he didn't play much last year. Who knows what he'll be on that team when he comes back, how he looks. I think it's a pretty fair trade, helps both teams. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of indifferent on this. I think off the bat right now my value leans towards Steve, but then you realize Patterson's 31 and the Falcons drafted a running back, so how much will that eat into his role? And also for Ridley, again, he hasn't played in 2 years. There's even talks he might not play again. I lean Steve here, but I think overall it's a pretty fair trade.
Yeah, plus getting the second gives Steve a pick, which he doesn't have a ton of, which he could then use to maybe go get another depth piece to help his team out this year. I don't know. But that was basically it for the trades. Injury-wise this week, a few guys got banged up. Godwin, hammy, I'm pretty sure. Keenan Allen, another hamstring. T. Higgins got a concussion. Najee, his foot, I'm pretty sure. Those were like the top guys that kind of got hurt, but all of them seem kind of like week to week-ish. Godwin maybe a little bit more. Do you see anyone that could step up while these guys are out, or?
I did read today that Najee is most likely going to be back for week 2. Although even when he wasn't, he didn't look great.
Yeah.
So if any of the Steelers' backup running backs there, you could probably, get vulture a few points there.
Yeah, I think they said Keenan's going to miss this week because they have the Thursday night game, but it might only be 1 week. So
yeah, Thursday night games are always, too quick of a turnaround for even a minor injury. So maybe you look at a guy like Josh Palmer or DeAndre Carter, Jalen Guyton there. In Godwin's case, definitely boosts Julio.
Yeah. Probably gets Russell Gage on the field a little bit more too.
Absolutely.
And then basically the only main severe injury, unless I'm forgetting one, was Dak, who's probably going to miss like 2 months, probably not going to come back till late October. How do you see this affecting like my fantasy team without Dak, and then also just that whole Cowboys offense, all the other pieces?
I don't think it's that bad for you because you also have Kirk Cousins, who happens to have a guy named Justin Jefferson on his team.
Yeah, pretty good.
And I think they have a pretty good offense all around there. So, and with a new coach, the offense amazed everyone against the Packers Sunday.
Yeah.
For Cowboys players, though, I think all around it hurts. The Cowboys Sunday night just didn't look good.
Yeah.
You only scored 3 points. Zeke didn't look great. They tried to get Pollard involved, but it was a lot of trick plays and stuff that didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
Lamb was locked down all night,
O
and
line didn't look great either.
O line didn't look great. I think I'm after seeing that performance, I'm very low on just Cowboys players in general this year,
Yeah,
especially now that Cooper Rush is going to be the starting QB, barring any.
Garoppolo trades,
Yeah,
which
Garoppolo.
we may see. But yeah, I think that Cowboys offense definitely takes a hit until Dak comes back. They might try to run it more, but the running game, that O line, they're going to be stacking the box. I don't know. Could be hurtful for those assets, but I think that's basically all the news that we need to cover. So we'll get into the week 2 power rankings. All right, so power rankings, week 2, coming in at 12. You guessed it, Matt. 0-1. He's in the same spot as 12 as he was last week. 65.5 points, by far the lowest in the league. We'll get into some good. Amon Ra had 20 points on over 10 targets. He could be in for a pretty big year. That's easily his best asset. And James Robinson put up 19.9, but was on his bench. Coming off the Achilles injury, it's understandable to not play him there. He did have 2 TDs, so that combines for 12 of his points. So besides that, didn't do great. But he did outcarry ETN. I think ETN had a fumble, so maybe they leaned more on Robinson. But I think this is could be a guy that helps him out a little. Stafford, really ugly. That Rams 4 turnovers was not good. James Cook had negative points in that game too. 1 carry and just fumbled it. Think he turns it around, but that's not how you want to start. Khalil Herbert on the good end too. He had better yards per carry and more goal line touches than Montgomery this week. Maybe he could be in like kind of a split backfield there, carve out a role to be a fantasy contributor. If you look at his optimal lineup, he was, I think, going to put up 109. And I think, yeah, Stafford plays like normal. James Cook can put up 10. Robinson has another good week. I could see this team putting up around 100 points a few times, and that could be good enough to win him a game or two this year. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, not a great week by any standards. Uh, Again, there is a little hope there. Herbert doing better than Montgomery could definitely be a boost. I'm not sure if it was maybe easing Montgomery in because he was hurt to start the preseason, or if it was the weather was terrible for
Yeah.
that game, so they wanted to just keep rotating guys in to avoid injuries. Either way, Amon Ra looked really good. KJ Osborne kind of disappointed in a big offensive week for the Vikings
Yeah.
against the Packers. Didn't really do much. And David Bell didn't see the field, and that was his first flex spot. So
Yeah. We'll see if Palmer can get anything going if Keenan misses, but he didn't really do much when Keenan missed most of the game. So, yeah, that's a little tough. Number 11, you.
yeah, I know.
0-1 was 11 last week, 11 this week. 97.72 points. The only other team that failed to break 100. I thought your team did play pretty well, just couldn't get to that 100-point mark and the win. Gabe Davis looked good. He had a touchdown, was targeted pretty well, had a few big plays. Hurts looked really good at the QB position, rushing for like 90 yards, threw pretty well. And Carter had him on the bench, but he put up
Yeah.
17. Was the starter there for the Jets. Could be on a good roll, and I think a lot of your guys did fine. Hardman caught the TD. Don't know if he's going to do that every week, but the main issue was the tight end room. It is bare. All of your tight ends on roster combined for 1.1 points. That's not great.
No, I have to speak with them.
Yeah, Irv Smith got nothing going. If he gets nothing going next week, this could be a really ugly situation. But we'll see moving forward. How do you feel about your own team?
So there was an interview with Irv Smith after the game, and it's that because he had missed all the preseason with the thumb injury, and he's coming off a knee surgery, that they knew that he was not going to be in the game. Like, he was the backup tight end for week 1. Wish someone told me that before the game finished. That would have been fantastic.
Then you could have had Tommy Tremble's 1.1 points.
Yeah, or I just don't trade Gerald Everett.
True.
Yeah, I think the team played well. I'm kind of happy that I lost by more than 17 or what Michael Carter would have added, because that would be brutal.
Yeah.
I think, again, the team itself played pretty decent. I'd like to see more out of Montgomery and Brees Hall. I mean, it was his first game. I can't really blame him. 10 points in your first game is pretty good.
Yeah, did have the fumble, but was targeted a lot out of the backfield.
It's a good problem to have when you're picking between Brees Hall and Michael Carter.
Yeah, not bad.
And even some guys on the bench, like Kenneth Gainwell, did pretty good. He got a touchdown. Ramondre actually really disappointed me. I was very high on Ramondre. Ty Montgomery came back from injury, and I guess he's the guy there. So
The whole Patriots offense seems like it's by committee.
yeah,
Tough to feel confident starting anyone there.
but yeah, I think it's a fair spot for me.
Number 10, we have Cherry. He came in at 10 last week. He's in the same spot. 0-1. He put up 104.68 points. Gibson looked good, had 20 points, a lot of targets. If he keeps that role, but that's a big if, that'll be big for Cherry. A lot of his guys on the bench did pretty well. Sterling Shepard had some nice points. Jamal Williams had 2 touchdowns. Robbie was the Panthers wide receiver 1. And O.J. Howard had 2 touchdowns. Don't think that's going to really stick. He only ran 6 routes the entire game, so I feel like that's more of a fluke than what's going to continue to happen. But the main issue here is Higgins got a concussion, and Godwin re-injured that hamstring. Probably going to be a tough week for him, especially if Higgins doesn't play, and might be a few tough weeks for him without Godwin, but we'll see how this team does. Your thoughts?
Honestly, with Cherry, if he could have all those guys on the bench vulture touchdowns or points like that, I don't think he's going to be the worst team ever. It's just I don't see that being sustainable. Again, week 1, especially with the preseason and stuff, a lot of guys didn't play during preseason. They want to just get other guys in. So maybe as the season goes along, we'll see how some of those bench guys, who I think at the moment might need to become starters, will do. I mean, Jamal Williams is definitely a great pass-catching back or goal line back. The Lions, he vultured 2 from Swift against the Eagles. It's just a lot of questions. Are these guys going to actually get roles, or is it just a, hope for an injury?
Yeah, he's clearly selling. Sold the trades we talked about earlier. Sold Kamara, sold Patterson, who put up like 20 this week. Probably going to be a slow year for him.
Yeah.
Number 9, we have Evan, 0-1. We have him down 1 spot from last week. He put up 104.66. Waddle and Judy look good for him. Both caught pretty big play touchdowns and were targeted decently in their offenses. My big question was, where was Amari Cooper, Mike Williams, and Devonta Smith? They barely put up anything. Smith got blanketed, 0 points. For those running backs, Sanders, he found the end zone and ran pretty well for the Eagles, but that Cowboys offense looked rough, and I don't think it's going to get better for Zeke. So that could be a tough situation this year. But he had Hillard, Burkhead, and Samuel on the bench, all on the bench for a reason. I don't think he would have started them, but they all looked good, put up points on the bench for him. We'll see if any of them get a start. It's tough to start them over your studs, but we'll see moving forward. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you kind of said it well. There were 3 big guys on Evans' team that just didn't show up. I mean, you think with Keenan Allen going down early in that Chargers game, Mike Williams would step up, and he 2 catches on 4 targets and 10 yards. That's not great.
Yeah.
Devonta Smith, I even thought he was going to be an X factor for this Eagles team with A.J. Brown because he's not going to have the best corner on him. But
yeah, it seems like the offense is going to run through A.J. Brown, at least through the air. Don't think Devonta Smith's going to continue to put up 0, but might not have the breakout year some were expecting.
And Amari Cooper, I think you can just chalk that one up to. He's a new team, so he's got to get
Backup
chemistry.
QB,
Yeah, with a backup QB.
Number 8, Steve.
Oof.
Also 0-1. We have him down 4 spots. He put up 109.22. One thing that looked great for him, Kelsey, he's still that top tight end. He was dominant, and I don't even think he played the full game because of they just blew out the Cardinals. Henry and Thielen, they, on the other hand, didn't look great. Thielen, the Minnesota passing offense was basically all Jefferson. And Henry, there's the video going around that I'm sure everybody's seen of him just getting trucked. And it's like, that's not the Derrick Henry I know. Cook looked pretty good in the game, but didn't find the end zone. He will over time. Him adding Cordell Patterson definitely helps, gives him some depth. Could play him over A.J. Green, who really did nothing. Duvernay also went off on his bench. I don't know if that's going to continuously happen, but maybe he gets a start and could carve out a role for the Ravens team. I think Steve will definitely find his wins, and this team will come around. It's loaded with talent, but was very unimpressed week 1.
Yeah. Outside of Henry and Thielen, like you said, A.J. Green did bad, and who did even worse was Devontae Parker.
Yeah.
He had 1.9 as the wide receiver 1 in New England. Again, you could say, oh, new guy, new team. But
that Patriots offense is tough to start anyone on.
Yeah. And he did have some good guys on the bench. Corey Davis racks up 13. That's not terrible. Yeah. Definitely needs to find a definite wide receiver 3. This is a team that is missing DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, for sure. And he may struggle until Hopkins comes back. But coming in on number 7 is Griffin. He is 1-0. Got the win in week 1 over you. He's in the same spot as last week, number 7. He put up 120.38. This game and team were Justin Jefferson and Josh Allen. They combined for 70.48 points, which were good for 59% of his team's total points.
I don't want to talk about it.
Everywhere else was pretty subpar performances. Deontay had like 10, looked fine. I think Boyd caught a touchdown, was okay. But Mooney, you could chalk it up to the rain, the monsoon they were playing in. So I think he bounces back. But the Elijah Mitchell injury, that hurt him. He started off okay, but now will be missing 2 months. Someone we didn't touch on in the news, but is also hurt. And then Akers, 0 points. Kamara said he was dealing with a rib injury, but should be fine. Very limited. It's tough for him there you need points out of those RBs. And
absolutely.
He just barely got anything. He was bailed out by Jefferson. The other bright spot, Garrett Wilson earned 8 targets. Granted, it was kind of a blowout. The team, me watching that game, people were getting all moved around. Who knows what his role is going to be moving forward. This Jets offense doesn't look very good at all, led by Joe Flacco. But we'll see how this, if it could get more points from those role players and not just rely on their stars.
At about 4:15, I had a very good shot of winning my matchup. It looked like that I don't just listen to projections. I'm like, hey, I have 2 guys left. I need to outscore Justin Jefferson. And by 4:17, I was like, damn, I lost. I think it was the first drive. Justin Jefferson had like 3 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. And I was like, yep, yeah, there it goes. But again, outside of those 2 guys, Deontay did all right. Wilson got the targets, didn't get the catches. And yeah, still running backs a big issue
Yeah.
for this team moving forward.
I think those running backs will do better in the future, but it's just a concern right now for this team. Number 6, though, we have James, who is also 1-0, beat Steve. He's up 3 spots from last week. He put up 133.1 points. He was the second highest scoring team, but others were around that like 130 point range, so it's not like he blew like other teams out of the water. Mahomes dropped 35, which was the best on his team and
I
a
believe
classic Mahomes game.
I believe that was most in the league for quarterbacks.
Yeah, probably was. Hunt had 2 TDs for him. Don't know if that's going to happen every week, but very impressive this week. He seems to always vulture off Chubb. And Fournette looked, as a runner, some of the best that I've seen of him in a few years. He looked pretty fast. The running looked hard, aggressive. He was making like good cuts and everything. The Damon Pierce hype train definitely kind of went off the tracks. Got outsnapped by Rex Burkhead by a lot, and this was kind of what I was saying in the last week too. That wide receiver room is iffy for him, and they kind of just showed that. A lot of them around like 10-ish points. But I think a big thing that will help this team moving forward is if Henderson is that starter for the Rams, could plug him in over like a Dameon Pierce until he gets his role figured out. Just will Akers start to bite into that? Don't know yet, but yeah, that's where this team is sitting for now.
Yeah, Hunter Renfro definitely is being affected by Devontae Adams going to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Only 6 targets, caught 3 of them for 20 yards. Not great. Drake London actually looked good in his first NFL game.
Yeah.
Cooks is still the number 1 receiver in Houston. I don't think there's any concern there as long as Mills can get him the ball. Dalton Schultz may be the only Cowboys player that did okay. He got 13 points, so. And yeah, Dameon Pierce, he averaged 3 yards a carry on 11 carries and picked up a reception. I maybe it was the preseason hype, or maybe this is all smokescreen. But I think as the season goes on, Pierce will definitely eat into Burkhead's role, but just not right now.
Yeah, I could see that. Number 5, we have Ethan, who did lose in week 1. He's in the same spot as last week. He put up 132.7 points. Chase and Pittman combined for 56 points, and they basically had very similar stat lines, like 9 to 10 catches for about 120 yards and a touchdown. Williams and Chubb also look good, the top 2 running backs. You're also probably not going to see a lot of 3-point Aaron Rodgers weeks. That offense didn't look good, but 3 is very low for him. And he still managed to score the 3rd most points in the league with Rodgers basically putting up a dud. And from a vet and one of the young guys on his bench, both kind of looked solid. Dotson got 2 touchdowns and was targeted pretty well, and Julio didn't look washed. So I like the future for this team.
Yeah, this is a team that didn't deserve to lose this week, at least in my opinion. Chase Pittman went off. Olave did pretty decent, again, for his career game. Even Pat Freiermuth, 5 for 75. I'll take that of a tight end any week you can.
He was targeted a lot, too, yeah.
He was. Rodgers may need to stop taking acid before games if he wants to avoid having 3-point games like that.
Yeah.
And overall, I don't think this team is done by any standard. I think that there's a lot of season left, and it's only up for this team.
Yes. 4, I have myself. I got the win versus Matt.
Big man.
Moved myself up 2 spots in the power rankings. I put up 129.96 points. Saquon and Swift went off as my top RB duo, combining for 59.9 points, and that's with Swift getting 2 TDs vultured off him after him having a huge explosive run, giving him a breather, bringing Jamal Williams for the touchdown, which was annoying, but I didn't need those points this week, so whatever. Uh, Michael Thomas came back and he looked very good. Kind of started slow. He was kind of playing those limited snaps, only played like 60-ish%. But then in crunch time, when they needed him, caught 2 TDs, was targeted a lot by Jameis. Will probably be the number one option there if he stays healthy. But that was a very promising sign to see out of him. Got to talk about the Dak injury. We did a little bit earlier. Going to miss some time, but I am confident in Kirk being able to step in. And then the rest of the wide receiver room was a little shaky. And my bench, no one really stood out. Chark had a touchdown, but everyone was kind of sitting around like 7 points-ish. Going to need someone to really step out, carve a role there to be my wide receiver 3 and like a flex.
Yeah, I think it might be time to move on from Kenny Galladay in the starting lineup. Every Giants fan I talk to hates him. I'm pretty sure he hates the Giants, and the Giants hate him. Outside of that, I think you had a very good week. DJ Moore only getting 8 is not cause for concern yet. Again, new quarterback in the system. I don't think that trend continues.
Yeah.
And besides that, I mean, you just had a solid week against a not-so-solid opponent.
Yeah. Number 3, we're going to have Zach. He won his first matchup, but we're going to move him down a spot. Only put up 117.82 points. Adams looked amazing. On the new, not Oakland, Las Vegas team. 17 targets. He's the focal point of that offense, and I expect him to have a monster year again. Arguably the best receiver in the NFL. CMC struggled for sure. Was not a very CMC-like week, but he still put up 15. Crazy that 15 points is like, this guy played bad.
I don't think any of my running backs put up 15. And I was like, oh, yeah, they did okay.
Yeah. Most people are excited about 15. With CMC, it's looked at as a negative. Najee and Keenan both got banged up. Might miss a week or 2. Who knows? And CD looked pretty bad. He was targeted a ton, but like we already touched on, that Cowboys offense was horrendous. But Donovan Peoples-Jones got targeted out of his mind, had like 30% target share there. Think Amari probably eats into that, but it's a good start for the young receiver who could earn his way in his starting lineup, especially with those injuries.
Yeah, CD, I'm definitely very low on at this moment. Backup quarterback didn't even look great with Dak in there. Elijah Moore did okay. And I think even with the injuries to Najee, which I don't think is going to keep him out regardless, and Keenan, I think Zach has enough talent on this team that he can replace that easily. I'm not really concerned for this team.
For sure. We're going to see Adams and CMC put up like 50 points a week for him consistently. Number 2, we have Jasmus. We moved him up this week, up a spot. He put up 129.54 points. And that wide receiver trio was amazing for him. 76 points out of his 3 receivers. Eckler and Jacobs did The running backs kind of struggled for him. Kind of concerning. Eckler didn't even play, I think, 50% of snaps. I'm not too worried about Eckler yet, but that wasn't a good sign. We'll see how week 2 goes. Allen Robinson just did poorly. I saw there's videos going around of his routes where he's just walking, taking 3 steps. He might also just kind of be that Kenny Galladay of not trying. That's what it kind of seemed like. We kind of touched on this in the first week too. The QB and the tight end look iffy. Fields didn't look great. Granted, again, it was the monsoon, and Njoku wasn't targeted a ton. And I think we see Jarvis in the lineup, did good on his bench. I still like this team a lot moving forward.
Yeah, Jasmine's played great outside of Njoku and Robinson. Robinson, I don't know if Stafford just hates him or if it's, again, new team. I was expecting more out of him. kind of stepping up as a wide receiver too. Jarvis on the bench looked great. Lockett, good job benching him because he didn't really do much, and he's also getting up there in age. Jasmus did really well, and yeah.
I think Allen Robinson might be able to turn it around. If you look at Robert Woods, even last year with Stafford, started off kind of slow those first few weeks, but then kind of carved out his role next to Cup. I think we might be able to see the same for Allen Robinson. Number one, staying on top, it's Trevor, 1-0. Highest points by far, 170.12. His whole team played well. I can't find a negative, really, when looking at this team right now. They're dominant. Their bench also was pretty dominant. I don't have much to say, and he's only getting better with the Elijah Mitchell injury. Jeff Wilson could easily find a bigger role, could give him another option. There's so much talent on this team. He's just no debating number one right now.
Yeah, I think you said it all there. I don't know a guy that had a bad week. I guess you could say the worst week was a tie between Darren Waller and Juju. That was 11 points.
And that's
still good.
When your worst players are putting up 11,
that's a good week.
Says a lot about the team. But that's going to conclude the power rankings, and then we're going to get up into the week 2 matchup previews.
Stay tuned. And now we're on to matchup previews. And before we look at this week, let's look back at last week. I'm going to put the records up here. So in my predictions last week, went 3-3. The only ones that I got right, I agreed with Adam on, thus making Adam 6-0 out of week 1. He did not get a single game wrong.
What can I say?
So fade me 50% of the time and go with Adam all the time. So if Adam and I agree, go with it. If we disagree, he's gonna get it right.
With me.
So now moving on to the week 2 matchups, I'm gonna start off with myself again, just because that's how Sleeper lists it when I write these notes. It's the War Eagles versus the Anteaters. Evan's a great friend of the War Eagles program. Matchup to watch this week is Philadelphia versus Minnesota. We have like 4 or 5 players combined on those rosters. Players I don't like in this matchup. Zeke. Also, not a fan of Devontae against Minnesota or Irv Smith in general for this matchup. Players I do really like Debo versus Seattle. Amari Cooper versus the Jets could have that kind of breakout with the Browns he's looking for. And also Judy versus Houston. Michael Pittman went off against Houston. I think Judy can do the same thing. And because I'm such a great guy, I'm going to say Evan wins this one.
Yeah, I do think it's very interesting. You guys have a combined 3 players going on Thursday and 6 players playing on Monday. So you guys don't even really need to watch Sunday.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even the important day for your matchup. I think with Evan, he disappointed last week. I think Mike Williams, Mari Cooper, and Devonta Smith all do better than they did in week 1. Probably at least one of them breaking out pretty big, putting up a lot of points. And I think that's enough to get Evan the win.
All right, so it looks like I lost this one. Next up, we have the Bison versus What Would Jones Drew. The matchup to watch in this one is Cincinnati versus Dallas. Players I don't like in this game, Matt's roster. Yeah. I think that's pretty fair. CD without Dak, I do not like either. So maybe Zach moves that out. As of right now, he hasn't. And then just Najee Harris. I think even when he wasn't hurt, he looked pretty bad for the Steelers. But players I do really like Devontae Adams versus Arizona. I mean, if he can do that against the Chargers, I think Arizona has a much worse secondary than them.
Yeah, saw what the Chiefs did to them.
Yeah. And I don't know if I said the CMC versus the Giants. Probably did. Attaboy Ryan. And What Would Jones Drew takes it easily.
Yeah, I'm going with Zach. He's banged up this week with Keenan gone, and who knows what Najee will do, but he's playing Matt, so it should still be an easy win.
Yeah, hell of a week to be banged up. Next up, we have the Minutemen versus wide receiver U. The players on this one were pretty spread out amongst the games, so I don't really have a matchup to watch here besides just individual players. I really don't like A.J. Brown versus Minnesota this week. I think Minnesota did well. Maybe it was just a product of the Packers not having a lot of receivers, but I think their secondary really stepped up last game. Also, do not like Lamar versus Miami last year. Miami put him through hell with just blitzing him. And also, not a big Landry versus Tampa Bay guy. Tampa Bay really shut down the Cowboys. Again, could be a product of not a lot of receivers,
Yeah.
but still, I think that's something to take into account. I do like Jonathan Taylor versus Jacksonville. He ran through Houston per usual last weekend. I don't think Jacksonville's much better, if at all.
Yeah.
And really like Eckler versus Kansas City. I actually like Fields versus Green Bay this week. Green Bay looked terrible.
Yeah.
Very bad. And obviously Cup versus Atlanta. It's Atlanta, guys. A.J. Terrell was burnt toast against Michael Thomas, who hadn't played a game in 2 years. What's he going to do to Cooper Kupp, who's been the best wide receiver over the last year?
Yeah.
And I am going to say that wide receiver U wins this one in a close nail-biter.
Yeah, I think this has a best matchup this week potential. Liked a lot of what you said there. I think Jasmus's top two RBs, Jacobs and Eckler, bounce back this week after just kind of doing okay. I think they find the end zone this week, and I'm actually going to take Jasmus in a very close win. That wide receiver trio is going to put up crazy points, and I think if those RBs come up too, I think he can pull it out.
All right. I should also mention that this is what I'm going to peg for my matchup of the week. So let's just move on to the next one after that. We have the Devil Rays versus the Steamrollers. Another game where I think the matchup to watch here is Dallas versus Cincinnati. Again, with the combined players, I think they had the most, with Higgins versus Boyd as a competition coming up. Players I don't like, Pollard versus Cincinnati. I don't know how many times I have to say it this video. I am not high on really anybody in the Cowboys offense. Also, don't really like Damian Harris versus Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh held Joe Mixon pretty well the other day, so not liking the odds of Harris. And players I do like, I like Josh Allen versus Tennessee. Tennessee had a hard time containing Daniel Jones, so I think Josh Allen can do a lot better. Not that Jones did bad. And I actually like Trey Lance versus Seattle. I know that they just played Russell Wilson, so that might not look like the best on paper, but still, I think Lance can really get the ball moving this week. And I will say that the Devil Rays do win this one.
Yeah, I think Jefferson's going to go off again. I think he's going to probably do that basically every week.
Yeah.
I think Mooney has a big bounce back game for Griff. I think Trey Lance has a big bounce back game for Cherry. Both now probably in better weather. Hard to be worse weather than last week. No Godwin for Cherry, and possibly no Higgins, depending on how that concussion protocol works. I think Griff, and I think this could be a blowout.
Yeah. Next up, we have the Dragons versus the Crusade. So we're on to Adam's game. I actually have two matchups to watch for this game, and that is Denver versus Houston and New Orleans versus Atlanta. There's a bunch of competitions throughout there. Players I don't like, I do not like Cooks against Denver this week. I think Denver really shut down Lockett and Metcalf last week, and just don't think Cooks is going to get much more done than that. I also just don't like Dameon Pierce.
Yeah.
Again, the hype train kind of fell off.
He needs to prove it first.
Yeah. Players I do like, Barkley versus Carolina this week, as much as that hurts to say. I mean, Nick Chubb had 140 rushing yards and Kareem Hunt had 2 touchdowns. I think one of them was receiving, but even still. Also like Kareem Hunt. He's vultured 2 touchdowns off of Chubb, so we'll see how that works out. And also Drake London. They're playing the Rams, and the Rams secondary did not look good against Buffalo.
Yeah.
Again, could be because it's a lot better.
Yeah.
But if they keep playing like that, I do like Drake London. I do think it's going to be close, but even with your backup quarterback starting, I think you win this one.
Yeah, I think what you talked about, yeah, Saquon versus Carolina. Just seeing what the Browns did last week to Carolina, he should be in line for a good game. And then I think Hunt doesn't score 2 touchdowns. I think he still has a good week against the Jets, but maybe not another over 20-point week. I think this matchup is really going to come down to the wide receivers. I like the RBs for both of us a pretty good amount, but we both have those iffy like wide receiver twos and uh, like the flex spot wide receivers. So I think it's if my guys get the touchdown, like or catches the 50-yard pass, I'll win. I think if the Renfro gets the 10 targets that he was getting last year, he'll win. I'm gonna back myself in a very close matchup.
All right, congrats on the win. Last we have the Cranberries versus the Gladiators. Another one where they're all kind of spread out, so I don't really have a matchup to watch in this one. Um, Players I don't like actually might be surprising. I don't like Henry versus Buffalo. I know he's famous for always just going off against them, but Henry was slowed down by the Giants, held to 8 points, and I think Buffalo's defense is a lot better and how they pretty much halted the Rams offense, which seemed unstoppable just 6 months ago. I also do not like Duvernay versus Miami again. Miami gave Baltimore fits last year and really slowed that offense down. And Olave versus Tampa Bay. He's a young guy going up against a really good secondary. Not the biggest fan. Really like Javante versus Houston. Jonathan Taylor just slashed through them last week. I don't see Javante doing much less. Uh, Dalvin Cook versus Philadelphia. DeAndre Swift went through Philadelphia's defense last week, and again, Dalvin Cook's a guy who can put up numbers like that again. Kelsey always seems to do like 20 against LA or just 20 in general. And obviously, Chase is just always a good option to have. I'm going to give this one to the Gladiators. I think they have a bounce back after a tough loss last week where they played the highest score. I think, yeah, they're
Yeah,
going to win.
I think I have a lot of the same stuff that you said. And I think Henry might still struggle versus Buffalo. I just don't think this Tennessee team is moving the ball really well right now, and Buffalo is. If Buffalo gets up early and they need to pass more, or Tennessee would need to pass more, could hurt Henry. He didn't get targeted much at all in Week 1. And then I think Javante eats versus Houston, and the Jets' run defense did look pretty good against the Ravens, but who are the Ravens' running backs right now? I like Chubb to kind of go off, find the end zone at least once this week against the Jets. And I'm also taking Ethan in a close one. This is my matchup of the week. Two teams that were looked at pretty highly coming into this season. Both fell short in week 1. Who's going to get that bounce back? Who's going to fall to 0-2? I think it'll be interesting to watch. Also, the two newest members of the Sock League.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to welcome in week 2. Let's head over to the outro.